Radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael's.
I want to ask you a question. I'll begin with a question on this Friday. Most of you wanted entertainment to continue yesterday's entertainment, where I asked you if you thought that the pornographer Hugh Hefner was a villain or a hero. And we had a great show, great callers, former Playboy bunnies, den mothers, whatever. It was a good show. But fundamentally, I thought about it this morning, and I said that show was about, do you believe in sin? I mean, was he a sinner or a saint, is what it came down to. Now, of course, the network said that he was one of the greatest men in the history of the world, far exceeding that of any patriot, that is, Hugh Hefner, the pornographer, as to be expected by the purveyors of pornography and violence. But I want to ask you, the audience of this show, which is a different audience than the network audiences. This is a very unique audience, as are all the audiences on this side of the aisle. It's like another America. Today, I'm going to play a little comedy. South Park did an amazing episode. I know it's on Comedy Central, which is filled with some of the stupidest people on the planet. But South Park is genius, absolutely genius. They did a great thing on victims. You got to hear this one. I'm going to do a little South Park to entertain you today. But I want to ask you something. Do you believe in sin? Does sin actually exist, or is it an invention of the ancient Israelites to control the wild Jews of the desert? Let me repeat that in case you missed it. You're probably shocked by the words because you never heard wild and Jews in the same phrase. So I'll repeat it again in case you missed it. Do you believe in sin? Does sin actually exist, or was it a trick of the ancient Israelites to control the wild Jews in the desert thousands of years ago? And what is the most regrettable thing you've ever done? I say, oh boy, confessional time. And then I'm going to show you. See, tonight is a very special night for the few million Jews that are left on the planet, and there aren't many. But they're very influential because America is, as is said by many politicians, a nation founded on Judeo-Christian principles. It's as simple as that. Okay, let's leave it at that. So if you say America is founded on Judeo-Christian principles, which it is, look at the founders. They didn't come from Iran. They weren't Muslims. They weren't Hindus. They weren't Sikhs. They weren't Buddhists. God bless them all. People of those faiths, but the founders were Christians, and their early Christianity was built upon the Jewish belief system, as modified by the Christian belief system, and there was great respect for the Jewish belief system. There was zero anti-Semitism amongst the founders. That came much later in this country. But let's go back to the founders. So, Judeo-Christian nation, today is a big holiday, beginning of sundown tonight, across America, actually across the world, of course, is the beginning of the holiest day of the year for Jews. That is, Jews except Larry David and Wolf Blitzer, in my opinion. But most Jews, when I say Wolf Blitzer and Larry David, I don't mean them personally. I mean them symbolically. They're the bagel and lox type of Jew. They use their Judaism as a, whatever they use it as, but they don't believe in God. They even, every one of their comedies, every one of their acts, every one of their statements eschews God and says God doesn't exist. Anyone who believes in it is a cracker. So except for that type of personality, of which there are too many, the religious Jewish people tonight at sundown go into a very deep state of confession. Did you know that? It's very interesting, but the Christian religion has a confessional on Sundays. Catholics particularly have a wonderful system. They go into a booth that's dark, and it has like cross-hatching of metal, and they speak to a perfect stranger in a white collar, telling the stranger the worst things imaginable about what they did, and they ask for forgiveness. It's a great system. It's free. That was before Freud. Freud figured out how to make money off that confessional and turned it into psychiatry. But the Catholic system's interesting. You go in the booth, they confess, Father, forgive me for I have sinned. And then, well, what's your sin, father, son, or daughter, whatever? And she says, I did this. He says, I did that. And he says, all right, 3 Hail Marys and a whatever and goodbye. Now, it's a very interesting system because it relieves a person to confess their sins. Jews don't do that. We have no confessional on Sundays or on Saturdays. It's hardly ever seen in the religion, except for the beginning of tonight, the beginning of Yom Kippur, which is a day of fasting from sundown tonight till sundown tomorrow, when religious Jews get into a high state of confession, and you'll see them wearing odd clothing. They don't wear leather shoes. But you say, well, what is a sin that they confess? You're not going to believe the list of sins. Leave it to the Jews to have figured out how to say that you committed 5 to 6 pages of sins. Meaning, in other words, you can say, well, what's a sin? Nothing. I lied, I cheated, I stole, I committed adultery, I murdered someone. No. They have 5 pages of sins. So everybody is guilty tonight. In the Jewish religion, everyone is guilty. We have transgressed, we have acted perfidiously, we have robbed, we have slandered, we have acted perversely and wickedly. We have willfully sinned, we have done violence, we have imputed falsely. We have given evil counsel, hello lawyers. We have lied, we have scoffed, we have rebelled, we have provoked, we have been disobedient. We have committed iniquity, we have wantonly transgressed, we have oppressed, we have been obstinate. We have committed evil, we have acted perniciously, we have acted abominably, we have gone astray, we have led others astray. Now that's only paragraph 1 of the prayer that religious Jews are going to say tonight in the temple. There's much more. But it's all about sin, is it not? Isn't it all about sin? So everyone in that temple who takes these Hebrew words and these English translations seriously admits their sins. And what are they doing it for? They're begging God to forgive them and write them in the book of life, so they should have another year that they can do the same thing. So they say what they did, then they say, please forgive me, and I swear I won't do it again. Just give me another year to prove it. And, of course, the next year is the same prayer. Now, the prayers were written thousands of years ago because whoever wrote the prayers, the wise men who wrote these prayer books, knew that people are people and they don't change. People continue to do the same things over and over again. And they stray. They stray from the golden middle. They stray from the honest center. And they try to penetrate the mysteries of the universe. And they try to touch the hidden secrets of every living being with these prayers. And they know that God searches all of our innermost thoughts. We know from the early prayer books, it is believed that God probes our minds and our hearts. We know that God knows everything that we do. Nothing is hidden from God. Nothing is concealed from God. And so we say, may it be your will, Lord our God and God of our fathers, to have mercy on us and forgive us all of our sins, grant us atonement for all of our iniquities, and forgive and pardon us for all of our transgressions. Now, I could read you the sins, and you could laugh at them if you want, but you're not going to believe how guilty you really should be. But the thing is that we're all sinners. At the end of the day, that's what man is. The Christians know that. At least the fundamentalist Christians know that. I don't know what other people believe. I think Catholics know that. That's why they have a confessional. I'm not so sure there's sin in Buddhism, which is why so many people in California love it. See, the Buddhism that's practiced in California, all of the fallen Catholics and Jews who go to Buddhist temples, who put on the act, they do the bow with the hands in front of their face. Do you think they really know Buddhism? I can't speak for everyone who pretends to be a Buddhist in California, but I can guarantee you they go there because they think it's a guilt-free religion. But it isn't. That I can guarantee you. All religions, whether they be Buddhism or whatever they may be, talk about sin. Every religion on earth knows good and bad, good from evil. So I'm asking you a question because I think it'll make for a great conversation. This is about talk radio. Of course, I've given you a bit of a sermon. I couldn't help it. That's what we do on talk radio. But do you believe in sin? Does sin exist? What is the most regrettable thing you've ever done? Even if you're the most cynical lawyer in Manhattan, and I choose lawyers because they have to be the most cynical of all people on the planet to do what they do for a living, except my lawyers. If you're the most cynical lawyer in New York who doesn't believe in anything except winning and defeating people and lying, cheating, stealing, anything you have to do to win, paying off judges, paying off politicians, even you, even you, the most fallen amongst us, what is the most regrettable thing you have ever done? Confess to me Mr. Savage, right here, and I will forgive you your sin. See, you're not going to go to temple tonight, but you may go to the Savage Nation today. And you can now confess in front of millions of people and be relieved of your pain. This is the Savage Nation for today. Again, we're going to play a little bit of South Park. You see, in America today, there's no really morality that is publicly accepted. It's all moral relativism. There is no morality except believing in false idols, false gods, the false god of climate change, the false god of transgenderism as the norm, the false god of hating America, the false god that Trump is the devil, the false god that Putin is worse than Hitler, the false god that the Republicans are evil, the false gods. These are the false gods that are believed in today. There are almost no crimes that can be committed, morally that is, in this country, certainly no sexual crimes, to the mores of this nation. The only sins that you can commit are the sins of, I guess, racism, which is a funny one. Since racism exists in all races, all you're going to do is travel the world to learn that, fool. Travel around the world and find out what racism really is. It's people who are of a particular race thinking that their race is superior. It exists in all races. I've been around the world. I've seen it. I know what it is. But if you're a fool who believes only in America does racism exist, then you're a bigger fool than even your mother thought you were when you were a child. So what are the sins in America today? Tell me what they are. You can lie, cheat, steal, and find a lawyer who says that you did it because of your anxiety, depressive disorder. What is this? What is sin? Now, a Reformed Jewish view of sin is that there is no sin. See, there's Orthodox Judaism, meaning the religious people who actually believe in God. And then there's the Reformed Judaism, which is sort of, well, I don't know how to even define it. They're nice people. They do everything nice for everyone. They're the nice people. Reformed Jewish people are the nice ones. They go to Jewish temple twice a year. Tonight is one of the nights they all go. And they go in there, and then they go on another night on Rosh Hashanah. And that's it. They throw a little money toward the Rebbe, and that's the end of that story. There's no belief system. They don't believe in God. They are God. Why should they believe in God when they've made so much money? Why should they believe in God when they've gotten their way on this earth and nothing's happened to them? Why should they believe in anything but their own will? But they know culturally they're of a certain religion. They go and they think, but what is it actually? Reformed Judaism is a watered-down form of Judaism that believes fundamentally in nothing. I don't even know if they believe in God. The extreme end of Reformed Judaism is nothing but progressivism. It's social action replacing religion. And so they replace the religion with social activism and think that they're good because of their social activism. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I know more about this than anybody on the planet. Which leads me to something I will tell you about, and now is the time to tell you about it. And yes, on November 14th, my magnus opus is coming out, God, Faith, and Freedom, from the very, very great publisher, Hachette, that published my last 4 bestsellers, including Trump's War, which was #1 on the New York Times list without a single appearance on any other conservative radio show, with the exception of Laura Ingraham. God bless her. She's going to have a great show on Fox News. No one else will have me on. And yet the book became #1 without any radio, without any television. How is that possible? So if you think that my book, God, Faith, and Freedom, is worth giving to someone, you can go to Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com right now and buy it. And by the way, every purchase before the first week builds up to that first day, which makes it happen on the list. I know this book is going to be very big. I see what's happening already. Trust me, I can see where this is going. It's a non-political book. And so people can say, wait a minute, what is he doing? Savage is suddenly talking about God? Do you think I just started talking about God? Do you think I'm doing it to sell you a hairdo? I've been thinking about God since I'm 5 years old, as you will read one day in God, Faith, and Freedom. And the same little boy that still doesn't have the answers still asks the same questions every night inside this man's body. There is no answer to the question. There's none. That's where faith comes in. You simply have to believe or not believe. That's the beginning of the show. Be here or be nowhere.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Well, my friends, the time has come for a measure of caution. And this caution has to come from the only source that's authentic, and that is God. I know you're saying, oh, he's going into that God phase again. God doesn't exist. Let me just tell you something. I've read thousands of books for my master's, my second master's, my PhD, and since. I don't just read the internet. I've read from The Savage Mind by Claude Lévi-Strauss, that type of thing in my anthropology years. The Pensée Sauvage in the original French. I read The Raw and the Cooked by Lévi-Strauss. I read the Yaji Letters in the Psychedelic World by William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg. I read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I searched high, I searched low. I read nutrition, I read health, homeopathy. I read low blood sugar. I read this sugar and that sugar. I've been a seeker from the day I could think. But let me tell you something. All of us who are seekers, no matter where we come from, end up in the same way. And it's not a pretty ending. So in other words, do we have a spirit or don't we have a spirit that outlives the body? Is the spirit eternal, and does the spirit get punished or rewarded for the behavior on this earth? Really, that's the question. Now, if you're a mechanistic person, and you could be a brilliant person and say, no, that's nonsense. We die when we die. The electrical energy stops in the brain and there's nothing. You can live that life. You can live that life, but that's a belief system. But according to the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, people are taught that everything in the world above has its analog in the world below. That is why the Bible begins with the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Beth, which is the equivalent of the number 2, to teach us that God created everything on 2 levels. Did you ever think about that? That it's not just a one-level thing? Well, think about it. Do you believe in sin? Does sin exist, yes or no?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
So the question of sin, does it exist? I started to tell you about Reform Jews. To the most liberal of Reform Jews, there is no such thing as sin. They say the word sin really means to have missed the mark, and it relieves you of the burden of guilt. Now, there's a beauty to that. However, there's also a danger to that. The danger is once man is freed of all guilt, he becomes like the typical American where anything goes. So you read every day, former race car driver becomes transgender ballerina. Say, what? Was this a joke? Sophie Rebecca from Leeds, England, has become the first transgender woman to pass exams at the Royal Ballet Academy. She's 6'3", and she yearned to learn to dance as a woman, but she said no one would teach her the female technique while living as a man. The dancer born as James instead pursued race car driving and target shooting. And before transitioning into a woman, blah, 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 rallying, shooting. You know, there's a typical bloke, he said. But he says, I was far from it. I knew from a young age that I was trapped in the wrong body. No, my friends, that's part of the mass hysteria of today. When he was 35, she was 35, she began taking hormones and, quote, chasing her dream. The trans ballerina now trains 4 times a week, blah, 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 blah. Since starting ballet and taking female hormones, my life has changed so much. I finally feel happy in my own skin, she said. I'm very happy for her. But this is a form of mass hysteria, in my estimation, of the times in which we live. If you need to take hormones to feel like a woman, it means you're not a woman. That's to start with. And if you look at yourself in a mirror, moron, you'll see you're not a woman. Now, if you have feminine feelings and you feel like a woman, you're not a woman. You're a man who feels soft things inside himself. That's called a full person. But apparently no one's taught you how to be a full person, a full being. So instead we go into the dichotomy of splitting a person in two. That's the madness of this whole trans thing. See the madness of it? Okay, but that's a topic for another day. I'm talking today about something very, very specific. Sin, sin, sin. My number one supporter on this show is Craig Smith of Swiss America, the greatest gold company in the world. And he just sent me this. He said, Michael, I agree with you. In defining sin, we have changed it in the English language to make it different than what its origin states. I love the show. Did the Jews use it to keep the people in line, you ask? In Hebrew, hatah, sin was an archery term which literally meant to miss the golden center of the target, or to miss when throwing a spear. In the Greek New Testament, it meant failure, being in error, or again missing the mark. He said, we see it differently today, but we're living in a nation where people can believe and do what they want to think, right? Truth is of no consequence in the world we live in. That is why your show today, I predict, will be one of your best. Lashana Tova, Craig. So let's go to the callers for a minute, then I'll get back to my insights. I have no other words for it. Today I'm in a very special state of mind. I can feel it. I transform certain days into another state of mind. It's not that I'm split. It's not that there's another person inside of me. It's just that certain things happen to us at certain times. You could call it weather. You could call it seasonal. You could call it dietary. You can call it nutritional. Or you could call it spiritual, or call it all of the above. Whatever you call it, just remember that you are not a static being. You are absolutely not a static being, no matter what you may think. All of your moods are like the tides that come in and out. How many tides are there a day? You think the tide is stable? I live next to the water. How many tides are there a day? Go figure it out. You're not even taught that in school. We are fluid. We're not static. So welcome back to the Orchard of Esoteric Wisdom, the Savage Nation. Let me take a caller or two to see what you're thinking. Martin on WABC in New York, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike, have you lost your mind today? Mike?
Oh, please make your statement. I mean, the question is ludicrous, but make your point.
Well, I'm on my way to shul, and I heard your opening monologue, and you're asking if they made sin to control the wild Jews in the desert. What kind of question is that?
Is it not legal to ask a question to the Jewish mind?
Yeah, I don't mean legal, but I'm just saying you got a lot of nerve asking a question like that on a day like today and saying those things about the Reformed Jews. I think you got a lot of nerve saying that.
Well, that's why I'm in talk radio. If you don't have a lot of nerve, don't take this job.
Yeah, you're true. I mean, I probably overreacted. I heard a lot more.
Well, what is it about that statement I made that offends you so much?
Because I'll tell you exactly why. Because I understand what you're trying to get through, and you understand, and probably most of the people on you listening to you do. But I'm afraid, Mike, that when others hear things like that.
Well, wait, hold on. Let's forget the others. What is it that you hear that offends you?
What did I hear? When you said that, I'm headed on the way to shul, and you can't question God on a day. You know, if you want to do it some other time, but it's quite clear that those are the rules that God gave. What kind of stupid question is that? I mean,
well, what is the question that you say that I asked that is stupid?
No, I didn't say question. I said you opened up by saying about the wild, to control the wild Jews in the desert. I mean, what kind of thing is that to say?
Well, how do you know it's not true?
Michael, that's outrageous that you even asked something like that.
Wait a minute, I'm asking you a question. How do you know that what I stated as a question is not a truth? How can you say it's not a truth?
Because you're smarter than that. That's why.
Well, what does smart have to do with asking a question? I don't understand why you're offended by it. It's a question. Okay. Was all of this created just to control the wild Jews of the desert? What is wrong with that question?
No, that's not the reason. Those are it's sort of like when you buy your new car, Mike. It gives you a car manual. It says you have to change the oil and change the tires. That's the manual of life. You want to follow it, fine. You don't want to follow it, don't follow it. But then when the car breaks down, don't say, well, I didn't know I was supposed to change the oil. Those are the laws that God gave so that you could...
Well, look, I mean, I could poke holes in your argument, but I don't mean to leave you faithless in New York today. There are many people who follow the guidebook, and they break down anyway. Their children go astray. They come to calamity. They die young. They get diseases and illnesses. So what do you say to them?
Mike, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Is that when nobody...
No, but you're saying that if you follow the guidebook for mankind, which is the Bible, all will be well, when you know that's not true. How many Jews went into the graves and the ovens holding on to their prayer shawls and their prayer book? That's why the Jew came out in Israel and realized that he had to have a prayer book in one hand and an Uzi in the other. Because if you only have the prayer book, what you wind up is in an oven.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
All right, so you better have a prayer book in one hand and an Uzi in the other. So I'm asking you, as a man who's obviously knows what he's talking about, why be offended by a question?
It just didn't seem... I'm telling you why, because I'm driving now to have dinner with my parents, and we're to go to shul tonight.
But that's a beautiful thing that what you are doing. It's a beautiful thing that you are doing this. So you hear this renegade on the radio asking a question, questioning the very core of your belief system, and you're shaken by it, right?
Absolutely. I'm swerved off the road.
Well, I don't mean to cause you to have an accident, but I think what it did was force you to ask yourself the same question, which is, how do you know what you believe in so strongly is true?
Well, I tell you,
and you want me to give you the answer to that, because I can help you with that, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll give it to you right now. So it's not a wise guy answer; it's a real answer. My new book is called God, Faith, and Reason. You're saying that my reason is defying your faith, and I'm saying that faith and reason go together like twins. So you don't need to have the reason to believe in what you believe in. You only need the faith to believe in what you believe in. Isn't that what you're saying, Martin?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that...
You are. You're not saying it's reasonable to believe what you believe, is it?
I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that...
All right, that's fair enough. Look, keep the faith, baby. That's all I can say.
Yeah, but...
Keep the faith, baby, and get back on that road. Go have a wonderful dinner with your parents. You're a beautiful man. You're a beautiful soul. And you're very brave, and I didn't mean to freak you out. But, hey, one of the objects of talk radio, if it doesn't do what I just did to Martin and maybe others, it is a worthless medium. Then we're nothing but clowns and shills. The whole object of talk radio, the whole object of art, the whole object of anything that's worthwhile in the form of spirituality or the world of art is to shake people up. And so I'm glad I shook you up, because it'll make you a stronger person. At the end of the day, either you come back with more faith in what you believe in or less faith in what you believe in, but you come back a different person. Now, that's a great testament to my powers. How many people on earth can shake you up to this day? Very few. So you better think about what you're thinking about before you speak about what you're thinking about. So now let me go back to all the sins that all of the religious Jews say that they have committed today. They go before God. They stand in the temple. They're begging God to forgive them of their sins. And they're praying that God forgives them their sins and puts them in the book of life. And they go like this. So they say, for the sin, God, forgive us for our iniquities, our transgressions, for the sin which we have committed before you under duress or willingly, for the sin which we have committed before you by hard-heartedness, which we have committed before you inadvertently, before you with an utterance of the lips, with immorality, openly or secretly, with knowledge and with deceit, and for the sin which we have committed before you through speech, by deceiving a fellow man, by improper thoughts, by a gathering of lewdness, by verbal confession, meaning insincere confession, by disrespect for parents and teachers, intentionally or unintentionally, by using coercion, by desecrating the divine name, by impurity of speech, by foolish talk, by the evil inclination. For all those God have pardoned, pardon us, forgive us, atone for us, say those today. How many of them actually think of the words and their meaning? I'm reading them to you on a radio show that's heard around the world. Think about that. And that you're hearing this show is a very important thing. It means you're thinking about these words. It means I'm using the public airwaves to air the fundaments of a religion that is the basis of the entire United States of America. Forget the rest of the world. I am not interested in what English think. I'm not interested in what the French think. I'm not interested in what Angela Merkel, the communist, thinks. I'm not interested in anything but what you think. You are my core audience. If the others are listening in other places around the world on the radio streaming services available, they can join in. But that's not who I'm aiming this at. I'm aiming this at the 99th percentile that listens to this show, which is the American audience on radio stations across America and by streaming devices. And I'm doing this because today is an extremely holy day in the Jewish calendar, which means it's an important day in the Christian world. You must understand why I'm saying that. There's very little dichotomy between the Jewish world and the Christian world at the core of belief. You have to understand that. Or to put it in a comedic way, as my friend Lorenzo, the Italian restaurant owner, God bless his soul, died of cancer 2 years ago. Mike, same a corporation, different division. I'll be right back. It's the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Let's talk about sleep just for 1 minute. I've been sleeping on this great mattress called Casper, and I pick it over every mattress I ever had. It really does help me get the best night's sleep, period. Once you try Casper, you're going to love yours as much as I love mine. Switching to Casper is a no-brainer. It's a higher quality mattress at a more affordable price. I'm sleeping cool and comfortable every night thanks to Casper's 2 high-tech foams. Much better than the old overpriced mattresses that most people have. You see, Casper ships right to your door for free in a very small, how do they do that, little box. They'll even pick it up if you don't love it and refund you every dime. From its breakthrough design and superior quality to its packaging to letting you try it for 100 nights in your own house, it's no wonder Casper was named one of Fast Company's 50 most innovative brands of 2017. So, look, sleeping on a mattress is the best way to try it. Please put Casper to the test in your own home for 100 nights. Risk-free. Go to Casper.com, code SAVAGE. You're going to get $50 towards the purchase of your mattress. You heard me. That's Casper.com, code SAVAGE, and get $50 towards the purchase of this great mattress. Casper.com, terms and conditions apply. So I had a caller. God, we're almost out of time, and I have another caller I've got to take. Let me grab caller Justin from DRC Radio in Connecticut. Justin, make your point because it's opposite to all the points that have been made. Please go ahead.
The way I see this sin is a method of social control, and it may be a necessary one. You know, we need ritual, we need standards to operate by. But the Catholics did something interesting with confession, is that they moved it from the group or even Jesus taking your sins to the individual being responsible for it. And I think that's what's allowed for a lot of improvements in at least Western society.
Well, I'm very aware of it. I have a higher degree in anthropology along the way, and I remember distinctly a certain paper written about, it was sorcery, illness, and social control in the Philippine Islands, where the anthropologist said that illness was seen by the sorcerer in the village as a punishment for misbehavior. So the people were taught in these primitive villages in the Philippines, well, your aunt got sick or your son got sick or your father died because he committed a sin. And that made people frightened and controlled them. That's the anthropological or mechanistic view, which is what you are presenting. You obviously have no faith.
I say I used to have faith. I didn't any longer, but it was mostly from seeing the hypocrisy and the unwillingness of the people that I used to go to church with. All
right. You know what? You're not alone, and I appreciate you calling. Stay on the line. We're sending you God, faith, and reason. Craig Smith, Swiss America. Michael, you're right. When Moses was on the mountain getting the 10 Commandments for 40 days, the wild Jews you talk about were partying, drinking, and worshiping a golden calf. They were so out of control, Moses threw the 2 tablets to the ground and shattered them. God was none too happy either. Many died for the disobedience. Michael, it is a great question. It was not meant to offend. It was made to make you think.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
I guess I want to now talk about ecstasy. Because if I say to you, do you believe in sin? Does sin exist? And the cynic says, no, I don't believe in sin. I do what I want. That means he or she thinks they will achieve ecstasy without any restraints upon themselves. If, on the other hand, you are a Bible-believing Christian or a Torah-believing Jew, you certainly believe that you have to follow the rules to achieve the ecstasy that is promised in your scriptures. Is that correct? And that applies, of course, to Islam as well. And so, what does ecstasy actually mean? Which is what we're all seeking to achieve. The word ecstatic literally means to leave the body. To leave the body. And it's a term that is used often to describe mystical experiences. And most people who are religious are not seeking mystical experiences. Most people who go to church or synagogue or mosque, they're not seeking a mystical experience. They're simply seeking to conform to their religious beliefs, as do their brethren, lead a simple, straight life as best they can, without hurting anybody, without hurting themselves or their family. And whatever happens at the end, they pray to God that their belief system helps them. So who actually knows the answer? Who is the Messiah? Where is the Messiah? Everyone's looking for this Messiah. It's a dream that's involved a yearning for freedom. A yearning for freedom is what everyone's seeking. Ecstasy, meaning to leave the body, to describe the mystical experience of leaving the body. Unfortunately, in America, many of the young people from 30 years ago who thought they were seeking or following a mystical path wound up drug addicts and broken on the roadside. And after that, after they came out of rehab, they went to work for Jerry Brown or Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton. And now their ecstasy consists of hating Republicans and Donald Trump. This is their true state of ecstasy, is hate. Their true state of ecstasy today, to make this very political, is that of hating everything that we believe in. So who is the saint on this planet? Certainly not me. What is the end of all of this stuff? What is the difference between the inner truths that we believe exist and the outer reality that exists outside of our world? What's the difference between the outer and inner truth? It's one of the oldest tensions in all religions. But who are the chosen of God? Who are the actual chosen of God? Are they the most persecuted and weakest on the planet? Or are the chosen of God the strongest and the most powerful on the planet? Well, Christianity teaches that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter heaven, right? That's kind of a communistic statement unto itself. I hope that Antifa members don't read the Bible, the Christian Bible, because that's liable to become their motto. And once they start believing in that, they're liable to become good people, so they better be very careful. But getting back to the fact that this is simply a radio show, a national talk radio show, and I'm only a jester. I'm only a clown. That's all. That's what the left says I am. I'm merely a clown. The master's degrees, the PhD, the bestsellers, that doesn't really matter because I'm only a clown. Although I read no one else's scripts, I'm the clown, not them. So welcome back to the Clown's Orchard of Esoteric Wisdom, where today we discuss, do you believe in sin? Does sin exist? And I've asked you, what is the most regrettable thing you've ever done? And I've told you why I'm doing this, because tonight, as sunset occurs in the nation, or religious Jews go into temple, and they start a fast that lasts 24 hours, and they genuflect for 24 straight hours, admitting all the sins they've committed. And some of the sins are so unbelievable that I've read some of them. Virtually everyone listening to the show is a sinner. By the definition of the prayers and the prayer book, every type of imaginable act and thought of this, you've committed a sin. Impudence, lips, haughty demeanor, by charging interest or usury, by eating and drinking, in business dealings, by evil talk, by scoffing, by bribe taking. Some of these you can understand are sins, unless you're a Democrat, for whom there are no sins. And, of course, most Republicans as well, by the way. Just say politician, it would fit, one size fits all. So everyone's guilty. In the Jewish religion, everyone's guilty for 24 hours. Then at the end of it, you say Shana Tova to each one. That means may you be written in the book of life. And immediately they rush off and they drink a glass of wine or something and have a piece of cake and go about their merry business. Well, that's life. No one has the true answer of what it all means. Those who believe in a man called in the last hour and said, how you dare even ask the question? You said, is religion real? Or was it just written by the ancients in Israel to control the wild Jews of the desert? And he took umbrage at that. He got very mad at me. How dare you say that on a holy night like this? He said, I almost drove off the road. How dare you say the wild Jews of the desert? Well, they were the wild Jews of the desert. That's why God broke the tablets. The Jews were wild people. They were very wild. They followed no laws whatsoever. They did what they wanted. I don't have to list all of the things they did. Just look around New York City tonight. Look around Los Angeles. Look anywhere you want in America, mainly the big cities. You'll see what we mean by the wild people of the ancient desert. They still exist. There's no controls at all whatsoever for a goodly percentage of the world, especially the Western world. And there's a clash right now between the wild ones, who are not really wild, they're the most enslaved. As the great George Orwell wrote way back when, I think it was in the 30s, he said, the more I hear people screaming, I am free, I am free, I am free, the louder I hear their chains clanging. I see that with all the sex shows on television. The sex clubs, the this club, the that club. I hear the chains rattling. It's human beings trying to break free of the zoological order, and they're not going to be able to do it. We're still animals trapped inside with a human soul. Our body is that of an animal. I'm sorry to break the news to you. We have not evolved as animals much past that of the ancient past. You know, the caveman diet and things like that. Basically, we're still cavemen. Physically, the man has not changed that much through all of these years, eons, ages. What has changed? I'll let you figure that out. So what is the value of religion in a world like ours that's falling apart? What is the value of a world where drugs are openly promoted as being good for you? And children are sold the false belief that marijuana is a harmless drug when it's the most dangerous of all. Lives are ruined. Ask anyone in the treatment business what it does to the young mind and how it leads to harder drugs. Don't laugh at me. It's true. You'll find out one day yourself what you did to yourself by believing in the liars who led you astray. But I'm not here to argue over the benefits. Or if you like to get high, that's your problem, not mine. If you want to inhibit yourself and wind up unable to walk, and your sperm becoming immotile and immobile because of the drug you're taking, that's not my problem. That's your problem. That's why you're condemned to not even reproduce. And if you do reproduce, you're going to reproduce a very, very deficient child. I can guarantee it. And that's why the world now is in a state of conflict. It's like earth in upheaval, worlds in collision. It's the world of the ancients and the world of the, quote, moderns clashing. It's not so much a clash of civilizations. It's a clash of a mindset. So what am I trying to say to you? Go back to God? I don't know. Do what you want. I don't care. Don't answer to me. You don't have to answer to me. I don't care where you go. It's your business. I'm not here to save you. I'm not running a revival tent. I'm here to talk. That's all I'm here to do is talk. Take some calls. So I want to tell you one story that sticks in my mind. Whether it makes sense now or not is up to you. And I hope I get it right. It's a weird day for me in many ways. I told you things come over me and change my mind, change my soul, change my heart, change my whole view of the world sometimes. Today is one of those days I'm in an altered state, and it's not from the chicken I had for lunch. I'm in an altered state because the world becomes altered on these very, very, very special days on the calendar when some ancients spoke to God directly. It's still within our DNA, and we still feel these vibrations, especially if we're sensitized and sensitive, rather, to the vibrations, and if we don't drug ourselves to block them. So nevertheless, this story came to me a long time ago. So the story goes like this. The communists had taken over Russia after the Bolshevik Revolution. They were like the Antifa people of their time. They were violent. They were murderers. They were bloodthirsty. They thought they were righteous about everything they did, everyone they killed, everything that they burned. They were the right ones. The Bolsheviks were like Antifa of today, the most dangerous people in America, the domestic terrorists known as Antifa. Now they put out a memo saying they want to kill anyone born before 1962. Don't ever confuse them with heroes. Nancy Pelosi may like them, but they have her in their sights as well. So the Bolsheviks took over Russia, to make a long story short. And one of the first thing they did was they went after the religious people, the Christians first. They outlawed the church. They outlawed Christianity because their God, Karl Marx wrote, the religion is the opiate of the masses. They want to replace religion with the state and make the state the opiate of the masses, you see. Okay. All right. So they went after the Christians. They killed priests. They burned churches. Then they came for the Jews, the Bolsheviks. They went to the head rabbi of Moscow, and they said to him, we want you to come out on your balcony because you've got a lot of followers here in Moscow, and we want you to disavow the existence of God. We want you to tell your Jewish followers there is no God. And the rabbi was a quiet old man, and he said, I can't do that. That's not what I believe in. It's not right. So they put him in prison. They put him in the Lubyanka prison. They put him first on the second floor. They came back to him a few days later. They said, Rabbi, listen to me. If you go out on your balcony tonight, we'll take you out of the prison. You'll be free. Just go out and say God doesn't exist. The rabbi said, I cannot do that. God does exist. They put him down in a lower floor. And the same thing happened. Finally, they put him in the basement where there was water up to his neck and rats in this tomb that they put him in. He was down there in water up to his neck with rats. And the same inquisitor came down. A young Bolshevik comes down and says, Rabbi, if you come out on your balcony and you say there is no God to all the Jews, and they follow us in our communist revolution, we will take you out of this. We'll wash you, clean you. You'll be free to go. The rabbi looked at the boy, and he saw that this boy was Jewish. He looked in his eyes, and he thought that he could get to him. He saw the spark in that boy. And he said to him, if you believe in many gods and one world, act accordingly. But if you believe in one God and many worlds, act accordingly. As this true story goes, that boy released that rabbi at that time, and that rabbi eventually came to America and created the Hasidic movement known as the Lubavitcher movement. That is a true story. I'm Michael Savage, back momentarily.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Make room for the masters of deceit. Make room for the masters of the extreme. Make room for the masters of chaos. Make room for the children of chaos. Make room for the prophets. Make room most especially for those who follow the straight way, because they are the most aberrant of all today. The most aberrant amongst the American people today are those who are the most religious. The most revolutionary amongst the American people today are those who follow the rules of Jesus, not those who break the rules of God. The most aberrant amongst the Jews today are those crazy Jews who wear the black clothes and believe God is everywhere. Those are the craziest, right? But they're the most persecuted, and they're the most persecuted, if not in body, thank God. They are persecuted by the media. They are mocked by the media. When is the last time you saw Woody Allen treat a religious Jew in any way other than with contempt? Every movie he ever made a mockery of religious Jews. What did Larry David do to advance human civilization and create civil order? Nothing. Every show he ever does, either mocks Christians or Jews. The mockers make room for the mockers, but they're not the revolutionaries. They are the established order. They're not the wild, crazy guys they pretend to be. They are the established order. It's those who follow the Ten Commandments, if you want to make it simple. They are the truly aberrant in our society. So you got to make room for them as well. They are outside the norm today. They're not the norm. Make room for them as well. It's a very, very difficult question to raise today, but I'm asking you a simple question. No one's called on it yet. What is the most regrettable thing you've ever done? What are you most guilty about? I don't have any open lines. I know I'm touching a lot of people in a very strange, different way today. Even the scoffers are listening. The scoffers, I can tell you right now with my sixth dimensional sense, are on the edge of their seat. Scoffers who have listened from time to time and dismissed me are not dismissing me anymore. So, Mr. Scoffer, do you believe in sin? What is the most regrettable thing you have ever done that you want to confess on the show right now?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
All right, whatever. So let's not get into the political just for the moment. Let's talk about power. Let's talk about strength. Let's talk about that. That's what I want to talk about. There was a time that when soldiers went into battle in this nation, they said a Christian prayer before going into battle, and no one complained about it. The Jews went along with it, made the boys stronger, made them able to face the enemy, even die. There's a time right now on Earth where that still goes on, but not in the American armed forces, because the witches, the warlocks, the deviants, the psychopaths, the communists, the Antifas have taken over the military. And, of course, Trump needs to purge the military of all of the appointments that Obama made from captain and above, but that's a story for another day. I'm talking about the power of prayer and giving a man or a woman strength, whether it be to run in a race, dance in a dance contest, or face the enemy in death, in battle and in death. The whole purpose of religion, as far as I can tell, was to strengthen mankind, not to weaken him. I think we have it backwards. I think that when people go into a house of worship and they come out depressed, then everything is wrong. Everything is upside down. What you're supposed to be achieving in prayer is the energy that connects you to the power. The Jews call it Shekinah. The Muslims call it something else. The Hindus call it something else. The Buddhists call it something else. The Native Americans call it the Great Spirit and something else. But they're all trying to tap into that divine power that empowered man on this earth. Some people don't need that. Some people can just, I don't know, they get up and they have the power in them and they just go about their business. They're great business people or they're great warriors. They don't need any of that. In their mind, they don't need any such thing. But most of us are not these great people. I just want to remind you of something. If you become depressed because of your sins, you're actually falling not into the hands of God, but you're falling into Satan's tricks. It's been written that if you become depressed by thinking about the sins you've committed, it's Satan's trick for separating us even further from God. The whole object here is to be happy. The whole object, in fact, of all religion is to make you happy. All of religion is supposed to make you happy, not sad. Did you know that? And so many people have it so upside down, they walk away from religion because it's just a bunch of garbage. It makes me guilty, makes me depressed, and I get sad. I don't want anything to do with it. And there's a lot of pleasure in sin, so I'm going to go down the road of sin. That's what's happened, because people have forgotten that religion is supposed to lift you up and make you stronger and happier. I guess that depends upon you and the teacher. But when you go into a place and everyone's beaten up and sad and they have bad breath from fasting, it's not a pleasant place to be. It's a sad place. Everyone gets depressed from it. So a lot of young people don't go anymore. They don't want to be around it. They want to be happy, so they don't go. They don't go. So where do you derive your strength from if you have no God, no belief in God? I don't know. Maybe you get it from sports. You get it from watching people get on their knee and spit on the American flag. That gives you power. You get it from hating Donald Trump. That gives you power. You get it from mocking people in the Christian Bible Belt because that makes you feel smarter than them. That gives you power. You get your power in a courtroom by robbing and cheating and stealing. That gives you the power. I don't know what gives you the power. Everyone wants power. And I have no answers to the people who don't have the power. I do know this. I know it from my own life. And for whatever it's worth, and I know I'm getting too preachy now. I know I've gone too far afield from Mr. Savage talk show host to preachy Savage, the one that some love but most hate. They don't want it. They want the funny Savage. They want the laughing Savage. They want the cynical Savage, the goofy Savage. But today is a day that I can't go there. Today is the day I'm here. And if I'm here, then I have to be here. And I invite you to be here with me. In other words, be here now. No, I'm serious. Be here now with me because this is what I'm doing. This is my show. There's no script. I come before you naked today. Naked. I don't mean I'm not wearing clothing. I'm dressed in the studio. I'm naked. My spirit is wide open. I'm just wide open today. So I ask a goofy question. Do you believe in sin? Does sin exist? Probably most people listening turn the show right off. I don't want to listen to that religious garbage from that right-wing nut. I'm smarter than that. I don't need that garbage. I know everything. Okay, good for you. But almost worse than them are those who go to temple today who are Jewish who don't believe in anything. The guilty ones who go, I don't believe in that garbage, but I go on Yom Kippur. Yeah, I go. You're the worst kind. You're actually the worst kind. The one who doesn't believe and goes there because you think you're supposed to go there or just to do some business in the back of the temple. You're the worst. You're absolutely the worst. That's what I say. So I think I want to shift gears a little bit now because the sermon is finished. I've given you almost 90 minutes of a sermon on the mic. I want to go to something that's a little fun for a moment, which I promised you at the beginning of the Savage Show tonight. And that was a comedy, and it's called South Park. It's technically just a comic strip. Some of the brightest guys in the world write that stuff. So they did a new one, Destroying Political Correctness, in a new episode that hit this animated show. And it's called, it's about entitlement, it's about victimhood, rather. And it's about white leftists are shown using a DNA testing service which then allows them to feel oppressed once they learn they have some minority ancestry. It's hilariously funny. It's only a minute long. Here's South Park. I advise you listen to it and then watch the show with your kids. It'll relieve your children of the hatred against white people that's going on today in the American society. Listen to this. You got to watch this series, the segment itself. It's funnier than the little promo is. I'm not going to go into it. Just funny. That's all. It's about this whole victimhood thing, which we're living through this curse right now of leftist-inspired victimhood. Maybe they'll help you understand how stupid this all is. KSFO, Matt, line 5. You're here to confess to Father Savage. What is it that you have done that you're ashamed of?
Thank you for having me, Dr. Savage. When I was a little boy, I was standing with my cousins down on the edge of the lake, and I threw a rock near a mother duck and all her ducklings, and one of the waves flipped one of the baby ducklings over, and it drowned. And I've been on my knees so many times, even as an adult, crying about.
Come on, you're pulling my leg. You don't really mean you're carrying that burden, are you?
I'm not, Dr. Savage. But sometimes it does break me up, and I have to go to God. I've been a Christian man since an infant.
No, but I'm asking you in all seriousness. You don't eat animals. You don't eat chicken.
Oh, I do, Dr. Savage.
So if you eat a chicken, how is that different than a baby duck drowning because you accidentally threw a rock at it?
Pardon me?
How is it different from throwing a rock and you killed a baby duck? What is the difference in eating a chicken?
Oh, because, you know, it was swimming with its mom. It was just a bunch of baby ducks, and I accidentally...
I don't know if you're pulling my leg or what, but...
No, sir.
I don't think you really care that you killed a baby duck. Come on, if you eat chicken, it's not like you're a Jane who doesn't eat any living thing.
That was the worst thing I've done. I'm a Christian man from Detroit. I live in Marin.
That's the worst thing you've ever done, my friend. You're a saint. If the worst thing you ever did was accidentally drown a baby duck, you're a saint. I'm sending you a copy of God, Faith, and Reason, which will be out in November. Stay on the line. I don't know what people think is the worst thing he ever did. I remember my father said to me, strange thing, he was no sentimental guy at all. He was old world. He was a kind man, but gruff. But he told me that the worst thing he ever did in his life was he had a gun, a BB gun, in the Catskill Mountains when he was a little kid up there, and he shot a bluebird. And he said it hurt him the rest of his life when he saw the bird fall out of the tree. I don't know, I don't know. Kids do things, they don't know what they're doing necessarily. Now compare that sentiment to religions and societies that teach young boys to kill in the name of their God. Think about that one. You know, there's such a thing as making yourself a little too sensitive. There's such a thing as making yourself too esoteric. There's such a thing as making yourself too airy-fairy, where eventually you'll fall over from being so spiritually advanced. Be careful. In fact, I remember there's a section in my book, God, Faith, and Reason, where I write about how sensitive is too sensitive. Because I've covered this many times before, once before on this show. Okay? Let's go to WJJF in Connecticut, line number 8 on the Savage Nation. My friend Robert, you're on the Savage Nation. What's on your mind?
Hi, Dr. Savage. I'm glad that I finally got through to you. I just want to share with you that I'm a practicing Catholic. I'm a 49-year-old man, and the worst thing I've ever done is abuse my body with alcohol and drugs. And today I went to Mass, and patron saints were actually the angels, Gabriel, Michael, and Raphael, and it was St. Michael, the Archangel, who helped me overcome my battle with alcohol and drugs.
Well, when you say it was Michael, the Archangel, wait, you're saying it was Michael, the Archangel, who helped you overcome drugs and alcohol. In what form did Michael appear?
You know what? I prayed to him. There's a Catholic prayer that you say to St. Michael every day, and I prayed to him a lot to help me relieve this burden and get the demon of alcohol away from me. And one day I was looking out the window saying my prayers, and this light shined in my eye out of nowhere on kind of a cloudy day, and that's how I knew that he was listening, and I had the burden lift off my shoulders, and I haven't had a drink since.
Wow. It's a powerful story.
Man, I got to tell you that I've always gone to church, and I get ostracized by a lot of friends, especially gay people, for going to church. And I explained to them that this is our faith and the tradition that I was raised in, and that I've never left God, and I know God never leaves me.
That is beautiful. It's a beautiful story. You're a very lucky man that you, first of all, that you were saved, but number two, that you have the courage to stand up for your convictions, especially in your community, where there's very little tolerance for religious people.
Very true. Very true.
Would you be able to accept a copy of God, Faith, and Reason, or shall I send it to you in a plain brown wrapper so your friends don't ostracize you?
No, you can. You can send it to me in clear plastic so I could be proud about it.
I hope so. I hope people are not so brittle in their opinions that they can't let another man read a book he wants to read. Isn't it odd that a book on God, Faith, and Reason will now be considered almost pornographic? That it's easier to receive a copy of a Penthouse magazine in plain plastic wrapper than it is a book on faith? That's how sick the society is, and that's how upside down we are? Well, that's the crazy world that we live in. The time is a-flying. Oh, I want to tell you about something. It's about traveling. Listen, if you travel for business, you know that it's a game of wins and losses, right? Like, do you want your hotel room away from the elevator? That's a win. You want not having a Wi-Fi in your room? That's a loss. Buying your business trip at UpsideDown.com? Well, that's not just a win, it's a triple win. Number one is this. Upside has the absolute best available prices for flights, hotel, and rental cars. Win number two is that Upside will reward you with a gift card to places like Amazon.com every time you buy a business trip. And number three, there is the amazing 6-star treatment you'll get from Upside's customer service specialist, who they call navigators. One recent Upside customer had a flight delayed for 2 hours. So a navigator arranged for him to have complimentary access to the airline's executive lounge to pass the time. That's a pretty great win, right? And that's just one example of how Upside navigators go above and beyond for business travelers. Imagine what they'll do for you. Upside navigators are instantly accessible 24/7 by voice, chat, email, or message on the Upside app, even reaching out to you with useful info to help you avoid a problem before it happens. And I'm going to start your Upside 6-star treatment right this second. Go to Upside.com, use code SAVAGE, and you're going to get a minimum $100 gift card to Amazon.com. That's an amazing gift. I think I'm going to go to it. That's code SAVAGE for a minimum $100 gift card to Amazon.com when you buy your next business trip at Upside.com. Upside.com, you deserve a better business trip. Minimum purchase required. See Upside.com for complete details.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. As you know, the most oppressed group in the United States of America today are the believing Christians. The most oppressed group in America. They cannot pray on a ball field. They cannot play in school. They cannot show a religious belief in the workplace. A football coach a few years ago was fired because he kneeled in prayer. His name was Joe Kennedy. Now you have the goons making $16 million a year, pretending that they're oppressed minorities, spitting on the American people, by not standing for the national anthem. Here's Joe Kennedy, who was fired many years ago for kneeling in prayer on a ball field. Listen to this, 07.
Yeah, I can't wrap my brain around it. I'm a Marine. I served for 20 years, and I just want the same rights as everybody else. And, what applies for one should apply to every American. So, yeah, I see a lot of similarities of freedom of speech and, freedom of the Constitution should apply to all.
Absolutely, especially to the most oppressed minority group in America today, which are the believing Christians. That's it for 2 hours on the Savage Nation. Do you believe in sin? Does sin exist? What is the most regrettable thing you've ever done? And what does the Yom Kippur service mean, which begins tonight at sundown and ends tomorrow night at sundown? This is the Savage Nation. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
It is the Savage Nation, and of course, it's hour number 3 of this special day. News, views, and reviews are the main themes of this program. Again, I'm not going to be doing much news right now. You can get that from any of the talking heads. Any of those with pink ties or eyeglasses can give it to you at night. I'm not that interested in the news, to be honest with you. My mind is in another state. And I've been talking about, do you believe in sin? Does sin exist? What's the most regrettable thing you've ever done? But let me begin by saying, lest he who is without sin cast the first stone. From the Christian side of things, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. So in essence, Jesus was saying we're all sinners, which we all know to be true. So the question is, what does that have to do with today, and why are you doing that on talk radio? It's not a religious show. It's not a revival show. Why are you doing it? Why aren't you talking about Democrats and Republicans like everybody else? Why aren't you talking about poll numbers? Because I'm not. That's why. It's as simple as that. I'm talking about other matters, spiritual, soul matters. Does it belong on this radio show? Who knows? Will it damn me or will it raise me up to a higher level? Who knows? I don't know. I know only one thing in talk radio, which I learned from the very beginning, which is that if you bait your heart with your hook, the fish will always bite, as John Burroughs, the naturalist, wrote. Meaning, if you're really into what you're talking about, the people will know it. And if you're just calling it in or faking it, Democrat, Republican, ratings up, ratings down, people are going to hang up on you. They don't want to hear that anymore. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. So yesterday's show was about the legacy of the pornographer, whatever his name was, Hugh Hefner. As predicted, as I said on the show, Hugh Hefner would be honored as a great American saint. And true enough, the three networks which push pornography and violence as their stock in trade hailed the life of American icon Hugh Hefner. They honored the pornographer for his progressive politics. So I need you to listen to the montage of those who provide you with the filth that you have come to know as television in clip number 17 on the Savage Nation.
We begin with the loss of Hugh Hefner, one of the most influential figures in social history.
His life and his work, a blend of sex, swagger, and sophistication. But his success started out as a long shot. The son of conservative Chicago school teachers.
This is where he threw those legendary debauched parties, and this is where he died. Love him or loathe him, Hugh Hefner left a mark.
Hugh Hefner was himself a playboy, businessman, activist, philanthropist, American icon.
And they did a lot of articles that were very progressive in the politics. They were pro-choice at a time when not many outlets were openly so. And they were very pro-First Amendment. And these causes that the culture sort of caught up to, but Playboy was doing it at a time in the 50s, 60s, 70s when it wasn't that accepted from big national magazines like that.
When I was growing up, there were two magazines you collected. One was Playboy and the other was National Geographic.
All right, you get the picture. Saint or sinner, let's not revisit that. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about you and what you have to say. If you've heard my show for the last couple of hours, I'm sure you are thinking about these questions very deeply. I want to take some callers. Mary on WABC has been holding. Mary, what's the greatest thing you've done that you hate or that you're sorry for? Sorry.
Yes, Dr. Savage. Years ago, I met a man, and after about 2 weeks, I found out he was married. Continued to see him and became pregnant. And after about 8 weeks of being pregnant, I aborted the baby. And it haunts me to this day. I did go back to the church and to confession and ended the relationship pretty quickly. But it haunts me to this day. Sin, I try to stay very close to God and away from sin. To me, that's what works.
So you still regret the abortion or the affair or both?
Both. Very, very.
If you had to do it all over again, would you have kept the baby, even though the baby was born out of wedlock?
Yes, absolutely. It was not the baby's fault. The baby has rights, and I'm pro-life, and I'm Catholic, and I'm very ashamed. And I thank you so much for this show, for this outlet. It's a big help to me.
Well, I also said something else in the last couple hours. I said the whole purpose of religion is to make you happy, not sad. And the greatest way to be divided from God is to walk around with sadness for what you've done, because that is a trick of Satan to divide you from God. So although you may think you have done a sin, and probably in your own mind you have, try to be happy about your current life because you're a different person.
Yes, it's hard. I do carry it around with me.
No, but don't. That's dividing you from God. It's Satan's trick, is to divide you through sadness and depression and guilt. It's to divide you from God. What's the benefit of being guilty? Tell me what you're going to do. You're going to bring the baby back by walking around hating yourself?
No, I can't. Right, you're right. And
all right. So the baby is not coming back if you hate yourself. All you're doing is making yourself miserable and keeping yourself away from the true meaning of religion or God, which is to be happy, not to be sad.
Yes, sir. Yes, you're right.
All right, so be happy.
Thank you.
It's that simple. That's my message today. Stop beating yourself to death, Mary. I'm going to send you God, Faith, and Reason the minute it's out. Stay on the line. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, hear, O Israel, Lord our God, the Lord is one. That's what all Jews say. What does that actually mean? What does it actually mean? Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Lord our God, the Lord is one. What does that mean? What does it mean? What does it actually mean? It's a way of apprehending truth. It's got something to do with the acoustical sense. Speak unto the children of Israel. Even the word Semite is akin to Shema, meaning to hear. You know the difference between hearing and being deaf? To hear. Shema, hear. Hear, O Israel, to hear. The acoustical. The acoustical. We are talking about a number of subjects. And one of the most important things we're talking about today is to be happy. It's something we all need to learn. Because, again, I keep repeating to you that to be sad or depressed for your sins is Satan's device for separating you even further from God. And never fall into that trap. You did it, so you did it. You're sorry you did it, you made up for it, and that's the end of it. Try not to do it again. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. What good does it do you to walk around in pain and suffering and depression? Who benefits from it? So I say this to you because many of us have made the same mistake over and over and over again and then fallen into the trap of being depressed over what we've done. So, I don't know, where does wisdom begin? Where does philosophy end and where does wisdom begin? I'll let you figure that one out. That's for you to decide, not for me to tell you. I don't sit up here like some holy roller who's going to lead you from your pain and suffering and heal your cancer. I can't do that. There's a biblical injunction, hide thyself not from thine own flesh. What does that mean? Hide thyself not from thine own flesh. It's a commandment to stop inflicting pain and deprivation on your own body. You should enjoy simple pleasures, whether that be a drink, that be some food, the companionship of a mate. That's what you're supposed to be doing on this earth, not suffering. You're not put here to suffer. You're not put here for that reason. You know, it's been, well, I can go down another road with this one. Hide thyself not from thine own flesh, meaning try not to be a saint because you're going to make yourself miserable. You still have a monkey's body. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, there was a book written years ago, a secular book, I remember, so many years ago, The Naked Ape by Desmond Morris. It set off a shockwave because he said it all. We are the naked ape, basically. That's what we are, physically, with the naked ape. But, of course, we have the human soul, which is divine. And animals, though we may love them as our pets, you know they don't have the same divinity that we do. They may have a different form of divinity, but it's not the human form of divinity. So we have these questions that we all ask. I don't care if you're the meanest person in your neighborhood. When you put down that meanness and you're alone in your own thoughts, in your own chamber, in your own sleeping chamber, your own prison cell, and no one is able to hurt you and you're safe in your bed, your mind goes to these questions, doesn't it? Doesn't it plague you? I mean, these questions they plague me. I can't imagine the other people out there don't think of them. I can't be the only man on earth who thinks about these things. I've been thinking about these things since I'm a little boy. What do they mean? What's waiting for us at the end? I don't have the answer to these questions. Don't get me wrong. I'm not holding myself as some religious figure. But I have all the questions necessary. I can tell you that. I have the good questions for you. It's that simple. So what are your greatest regrets? KSFO, Mary, line 8. Go ahead, please. You're on the Savage Nation.
Hi, Michael Savage. How are you today?
What's your biggest regret, Mary?
I had a crazy time in my life, like a lot of young people, and I actually had 5 abortions. And I regretted that. I used to regret that, but I don't regret that anymore. I do believe, I strongly believe in a Savior, and I walk with Him now, and I keep His ways, and it helps keep me out of trouble.
But when you were a young hippie child, and when you were a young hippie and you were doing drugs and you were having wild sex and you became pregnant, what were you thinking?
What was I thinking? Well, I actually wasn't thinking, I guess. I wasn't really that wild either. I was actually a single mother of one child, and I basically had my hands full trying to support that child.
All right, so you did the abortions because you knew you couldn't afford to raise those children, in your mind.
Exactly.
Do you ever, I don't want to go down the road of making you very unhappy, but because men can never understand this question the way a woman can. Do you ever think about who those aborted babies would be today had you not aborted them?
Not really, because I, in my personal religious belief, have the conscience that I am going to be face-to-face with those children again one day.
Wow. Oh, my God. That's as you used to say in your hippie days, that blows your mind. That's a mind blower, Mary.
Well, it does. I believe that I'm fully forgiven through my Savior, Yeshua, and I am actually going to be celebrating the Day of Atonement because it was the holidays that Christ kept as he grew up as a Jew. He kept all of these so-called Jewish holidays. So I will be celebrating that when the sun goes down, and I am a Sabbath keeper as well.
Mary, they're not so-called. They are Jewish holidays. They're not so-called. They are Jewish holidays.
That guilt.
Yeah, well, you can celebrate them, but do know that they're Jewish holidays. So what are you going to do tonight at sundown? How are you going to celebrate this holiday?
Well, I will be fasting, like a lot of people will that I know. And
and you feel that the fasting will bring you closer to God? Do you think fasting will bring you closer to God?
No, it's not necessarily. It's just that in the early Torah, as you know, you're very well read on the Bible, he commanded us to keep these days, and so that's why I do it.
I hear you.
He commanded.
I hear you. Well, you're following the commandments. That's your personal belief system. And you are definitely an oppressed. You're definitely an oppressed minority in the San Francisco Bay Area. You're a victim of hatred like no one else in this country. Anyone who's a true believer in the Bay Area is frowned upon, reviled, spit upon, shunned like nowhere else in the United States of America. The truly religious are the truly hated in this land without pity. Mary, thank you for listening. I'm sending you a copy of God, Faith, and Reason the minute it's available. I'll be right back. Wait, no. When I come back, I'm going to talk to Jerry, whose greatest regret is that he killed people in war. I want to hear from him. I've got to hear from him. So please hold on to hear from Jerry on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Let's not waste your time here. Jerry on KSFO is calling to confess what he says is the greatest regrettable thing he's ever done. Jerry, KSFO, fire away. What's the greatest regret you have?
Hello, Michael. I've been listening to you for better than 20 years now. I'm a Vietnam combat Marine, and what you brought up today kind of brought something home for me for some reason. Aside, one of my Great Pyrenees died 2 days ago, and I was watching the Vietnam show on TV, and you brought up this question, and all of a sudden it came flooding back. I don't know how you get rid of this kind of a thing. I was born and raised.
What do you mean? You mean the men you killed in combat is what you're saying?
Yes, I don't know.
Well, he's breaking up. It's terribly sad that Jim is not here to help me with this, but I'm sorry about that, Jerry. Your phone is breaking up, and we can't fix it right now. He's saying that the greatest thing he regrets is killing people in war. It's the worst thing he's ever done, and it was brought back to him by my questions and by the death of his dogs just a few days ago. Well, how do I end this segment for you? I don't have a way to end it. All I can do is begin it. All I can say to you is don't be old. Never let an old person live in your body. Just remember what I just said to you. One day that'll come back to you. In you, in all of us, there is a perennial child This child has never left you. The child who wonders at everything. The child who hears the song of the soul. The child for whom every blade of grass, every plant, every flower sings its song, as written by Oscar Wilde. The same as the biblical and Talmudic imagery of angels as children. The child remembers how to be amazed. Everything is new to him. The sky, the sun, the stars, mother, father, the doll. The child sees it all. And that's what we must remember. We must try to cast away all of the layers of time, of learning, of pain. It's forbidden to be old, said Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. It is forbidden to be old. Have a second birth and be the child within. Let me leave you with that one. And maybe you will scent the fragrance of Eden.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Tonight is a very special night for the few million Jews that are left on the planet, and there aren't many. But they're very influential because America is, as is said by many politicians, a nation founded on Judeo-Christian principles. It's as simple as that. Okay, let's leave it at that. So if you say America is founded on Judeo-Christian principles, which it is, look at the founders. They didn't come from Iran. They weren't Muslims. They weren't Hindus. They weren't Sikhs. They weren't Buddhists. God bless them all, people of those faiths. But the founders were Christians. And their early Christianity was built upon the Jewish belief system, as modified by the Christian belief system. And there was great respect for the Jewish belief system. There was zero anti-Semitism amongst the founders. That came much later in this country. But let's go back to the founders. So, Judeo-Christian nation. Today is a big holiday, beginning of sundown tonight across America, actually across the world, of course, is the beginning of the holiest day of the year for Jews. That is, Jews except Larry David and Wolf Blitzer, in my opinion. But most Jews, when I say Wolf Blitzer and Larry David, I don't mean them personally. I mean them symbolically. They're the bagel and lox type of Jew. They use their Judaism as a, whatever they use it as, but they don't believe in God. They even, every one of their comedies, every one of their acts, every one of their statements eschews God and says God doesn't exist. Anyone who believes in it is a cracker. So, except for that type of personality, of which there are too many, the religious Jewish people tonight at sundown go into a very deep state of confession. Did you know that? It's very interesting, but the Christian religion has a confessional on Sundays. Catholics particularly have a wonderful system. They go into a booth that's dark, and it has like cross-hatching of metal, and they speak to a perfect stranger in a white collar, telling the stranger the worst things imaginable about what they did, and they ask for forgiveness. It's a great system. It's free. That was before Freud. Freud figured out how to make money off that confessional and turned it into psychiatry. But the Catholic system's interesting. You go in the booth, they confess, Father, forgive me for I have sinned. And then, well, what's your sin, father, son, or daughter, whatever? And she says, I did this. He says, I did that. And he says, all right, 3 Hail Marys and a whatever and goodbye. Now, it's a very interesting system because it relieves a person to confess their sins. Jews don't do that. We have no confessional on Sundays or on Saturdays. It's hardly ever seen in the religion, except for the beginning of tonight, the beginning of Yom Kippur, which is a day of fasting till sundown tomorrow, when religious Jews get into a high state of confession, and you'll see them wearing odd clothing. They don't wear leather shoes. But you say, well, what is a sin that they confess? You're not going to believe the list of sins. Leave it to the Jews to have figured out how to say that you committed 5 to 6 pages of sins. Meaning, in other words, you can say, well, what's a sin? Nothing. I lied, I cheated, I stole, I committed adultery, I murdered someone. No. They have 5 pages of sins. So everybody is guilty tonight. In the Jewish religion, everyone is guilty. We have transgressed, we have acted perfidiously, we have robbed, we have slandered, we have acted perversely and wickedly. We have willfully sinned, we have done violence, we have imputed falsely. We have given evil counsel, hello lawyers. We have lied, we have scoffed, we have rebelled, we have provoked, we have been disobedient, we have committed iniquity, we have wantonly transgressed, we have oppressed, we have been obstinate, we have committed evil, we have acted perniciously, we have acted abominably, we have gone astray, we have led others astray. Now that's only paragraph 1 of the prayer that religious Jews are going to say tonight in the temple. There's much more. But it's all about sin, is it not? Isn't it all about sin? So everyone in that temple who takes these Hebrew words and these English translations seriously admits their sins. And what are they doing it for? They're begging God to forgive them and write them in the book of life so they should have another year that they can do the same thing. So they say what they did, then they say, please forgive me, and I swear I won't do it again. Just give me another year to prove it. And, of course, the next year is the same prayer. Now, the prayers were written thousands of years ago because whoever wrote the prayers, the wise men who wrote these prayer books, knew that people are people and they don't change. People continue to do the same things over and over again. And they stray. They stray from the golden middle. They stray from the honest center. And they try to penetrate the mysteries of the universe. And they try to touch the hidden secrets of every living being with these prayers. And they know that God searches all of our innermost thoughts. We know from the early prayer books, it is believed that God probes our minds and our hearts. We know that God knows everything that we do. Nothing is hidden from God. Nothing is concealed from God. And so we say, may it be your will, Lord our God and God of our fathers, to have mercy on us and forgive us all of our sins, grant us atonement for all of our iniquities, and forgive and pardon us for all of our transgressions. Now, I could read you the sins, and you could laugh at them if you want, but you're not going to believe how guilty you really should be. But the thing is that we're all sinners. At the end of the day, that's what man is. The Christians know that. At least the fundamentalist Christians know that. I don't know what other people believe. I think Catholics know that. That's why they have a confessional. I'm not so sure there's sin in Buddhism, which is why so many people in California love it. See, the Buddhism that's practiced in California, all of the fallen Catholics and Jews who go to Buddhist temples, who put on the act, they do the bow with the hands in front of their face. Do you think they really know Buddhism? I can't speak for everyone who pretends to be a Buddhist in California, but I can guarantee you they go there because they think it's a guilt-free religion. But it isn't. That I can guarantee you. All religions, whether they be Buddhism or whatever they may be, talk about sin. Every religion on earth knows good and bad, good from evil. So the question of sin, does it exist? I started to tell you about Reform Jews. To the most liberal of Reform Jews, there is no such thing as sin. They say the word sin really means to have missed the mark, and it relieves you of the burden of guilt. Now, there's a beauty to that. However, there's also a danger to that. The danger is once man is freed of all guilt, he becomes like the typical American where anything goes. So you read every day, former race car driver becomes transgender ballerina. Say, what? Was this a joke? Sophie Rebecca from Leeds, England has become the first transgender woman to pass exams at the Royal Ballet Academy. She's 6'3", and she yearned to learn to dance as a woman, but she said no one would teach her the female technique while living as a man. The dancer born as James instead pursued race car driving and target shooting. And before transitioning into a woman, blah, 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 rallying and shooting. There's a typical bloke, he said. But he says, I was far from it. I knew from a young age that I was trapped in the wrong body. No, my friends, that's part of the mass hysteria of today. When he was 35, she was 35, she began taking hormones and, quote, chasing her dream. The trans ballerina now trains 4 times a week, blah, 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 blah. Since starting ballet and taking female hormones, my life has changed so much. I finally feel happy in my own skin, she said. I'm very happy for her. But this is a form of mass hysteria, in my estimation, of the times in which we live. If you need to take hormones to feel like a woman, it means you're not a woman. That's to start with. And if you look at yourself in a mirror, moron, you'll see you're not a woman. Now, if you have feminine feelings and you feel like a woman, you're not a woman. You're a man who feels soft things inside himself. That's called a full person. But apparently no one's taught you how to be a full person, a full being. So instead we go into the dichotomy of splitting a person in two. That's the madness of this whole trans thing. See the madness of it? Okay, but that's a topic for another day. I'm talking today about something very, very specific. Sin, sin, sin. My number one supporter on this show is Craig Smith of Swiss America, the greatest gold company in the world. And he just sent me this. He said, Michael, I agree with you. In defining sin, we have changed it in the English language to make it different than what its origin states. I love the show. Did the Jews use it to keep the people in line, you ask? In Hebrew, hatah, sin was an archery term which literally meant to miss the golden center of the target, or to miss when throwing a spear. In the Greek New Testament, it meant failure, being in error, or again missing the mark. He said, we see it differently today, but we're living in a nation where people can believe and do what they want to think, right? Truth is of no consequence in the world we live in. That is why your show today, I predict, will be one of your best. Lashana Tova, Craig. So I want to tell you one story that sticks in my mind. Whether it makes sense now or not is up to you. And I hope I get it right. It's a weird day for me in many ways. I told you things come over me and change my mind, change my soul, change my heart, change my whole view of the world sometimes. Today is one of those days. I'm in an altered state, and it's not from the chicken I had for lunch. I'm in an altered state because the world becomes altered on these very, very, very special days on the calendar when some ancients spoke to God directly. It's still within our DNA, and we still feel these vibrations, especially if we're sensitized and sensitive, rather, to the vibrations, and if we don't drug ourselves to block them. So nevertheless, this story came to me a long time ago. So the story goes like this. The communists had taken over Russia after the Bolshevik Revolution. They were like the Antifa people of their time. They were violent, they were murderers, they were bloodthirsty. They thought they were righteous about everything they did, everyone they killed, everything that they burned. They were the right ones. The Bolsheviks were like Antifa of today, the most dangerous people in America, the domestic terrorists known as Antifa. Now they put out a memo saying they want to kill anyone born before 1962. Don't ever confuse them with heroes. Nancy Pelosi may like them, but they have her in their sights as well. So the Bolsheviks took over Russia, to make a long story short. And one of the first things they did was they went after the religious people, the Christians first. They outlawed the church. They outlawed Christianity because their God, Karl Marx wrote, the religion is the opiate of the masses. They want to replace religion with the state and make the state the opiate of the masses, you see. Okay. All right. So they went after the Christians. They killed priests. They burned churches. Then they came for the Jews, the Bolsheviks. They went to the head rabbi of Moscow. And they said to him, we want you to come out on your balcony because you've got a lot of followers here in Moscow. And we want you to disavow the existence of God. We want you to tell your Jewish followers there is no God. And the rabbi was a quiet old man, and he said, I can't do that. That's not what I believe in. It's not right. So they put him in prison. They put him in Lubyanka prison. They put him first on the second floor. They came back to him a few days later. They said, Rabbi, listen to me. If you go out on your balcony tonight, we'll take you out of the prison. You'll be free. Just go out and say God doesn't exist. The rabbi said, I cannot do that. God does exist. They put him down in a lower floor. And the same thing happened. Finally, they put him in the basement where there was water up to his neck and rats in this tomb that they put him in. He was down there in water up to his neck with rats. And the same inquisitor came down, a young Bolshevik, comes down and says, Rabbi, if you come out on your balcony and you say there is no God to all the Jews and they follow us in our communist revolution, we will take you out of this, we'll wash you, clean you, you'll be free to go. The rabbi looked at the boy and he saw that this boy was Jewish. He looked in his eyes and he thought that he could get to him. He saw the spark in that boy. And he said to him, if you believe in many gods and one world, act accordingly. But if you believe in one God and many worlds, act accordingly. As this true story goes, that boy released that rabbi at that time, and that rabbi eventually came to America and created the Hasidic movement known as the Lubavitcher movement. That is a true story. I'm Michael Savage, back momentarily.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Well, it's one of those days. The show is coming to an end. It's been 3 hours on the radio. They've gone by quite rapidly. I'm thinking, of course, about what you are, where you are. I can't imagine how many people. How can you imagine where so many people listen to any broadcast, whoever the broadcaster may be? Where are you? Who are you? What do you look like? What do you sound like? What do you feel like? What are you reacting to? What are you not reacting to? This is not a live audience. It's a theater of my mind as much as it is a theater of the mind of the listener. We're all in a theater between our ears. What do you think about it? And in that theater, amazing things can happen. So some think all the time about doing good, some think about doing evil, but most of us think only about getting through the day as best we can, making a living, keeping our noses clean, so to speak, not eating too much, not eating the wrong things, and not drinking too much at night. And that's the average person. For others, though, in America today, they're filled with hate. All they do is hate. They hate Trump. That's the new modus operandi of so many people. They're foolishly believing that by hating Trump, they're going to find the promised land. They're going to find nirvana. Or by hating conservatives. Or by hating fascists without defining what fascist means other than looking in a mirror. So you have to decide for yourself what the truth is. I'm going to end it with the last quote from my book, God, Faith, and Reason. I have quotes from the Bible I've carried with me for 40 years. And Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept upon him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father, and the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were fulfilled for him, for so are fulfilled the days of embalming. And the Egyptians wept for him there 70 days. Genesis 50:1-3. What does that mean? What does that mean? What are we supposed to believe? It's whatever you want to believe. The trick is to believe what you want to believe without hurting yourself or anyone else. To me, that's the essence of wisdom. Or as a man once said to me, all religion can be boiled down to one statement: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. He said, to me, I think every religion teaches the same thing. That's it. There's nothing else I can say to you. The sun rises, the sun shall always rise. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, the sun shall always rise. There are 7 marks of an uncultured and 7 of a wise man. The wise man does not speak before him who is greater than he is in wisdom. And it goes on like that. It was written by an anonymous source. It's another of the last pages of God, Faith, and Reason, which will be out in November. I advise you to check out a copy online at Amazon.com. Until then, until Monday, thank you for listening.